about that. As those session daily stories are put online throughout the day, we'll send out Twitters about that. You know, in best case scenario during session, we may have 8 or 10 of these session daily stories. So we'll put out a little headline and then put a URL link in that Twitter to the actual online story. We do a daily schedule, or I do a daily schedule at the end of the day. You know, what's the next day's TV cover? So I'll send out a Twitter announcement for that, besides our normal email listserv kind of things. And then if there's any changes to the TV schedule, you know, we do that too. Press releases, and then at the end of the week during the session, our photographers create a slideshow that sort of gives us not only the committee activity, but a flavor of all the activities that happen around the state capitol complex. This is our Twitter page, Min-House Info, and I did a screen grab of this last week. Please notice the top story was the Minnesota Broadband access. When that was released recently, we did a session daily story on that. And then you know, hit that URL and it takes you to the online story. We also had a link to the actual broadband report, the electronic report, and so that's our main page. I'll give you a little bit of a timeline of how we went about this. We started the page in late December 2008, but we had been talking about it. Well, my staff had been talking about 6 months prior to that. I myself don't use social media, so when they talked about us using some kind of social media, I was like, ooh. I don't know. I need to know more about it. And I mean, being a public entity is high profile at the Minnesota House, so I was trying to be real careful. But what we did late December 2008, in fact it was December 31st, I think, we created the page and started posting items, but we didn't publicly promote it. We didn't do a press release. We didn't announce it to members or staff, just to our internal staff and some of our families and friends. So we did what we call a soft roll-up. January 6th, 2009 was the start of the legislative session, and as you can see, January 6th to April 13th, which is a good 3 months plus, we did this just sort of an internal, no public notification process where we posted items on a regular basis, but we were testing the procedures. You know, how technically difficult is it to use a Twitter, which it is. How do you create the URLs? But we also wanted to determine, you know, what do we post, what do we not post, who's going to do the postings, and what kind of time demands that is going to be on our staff.
Did you develop written policy for that?
No, it was real sort of loose, and even now we have very basic policies. But that was one of the challenges that we faced. April 13th was the end of that sort of test period where we evaluated the whole process, and then we really had to fine-tune what items we were going to post. Because we have a lot of information in our office, a lot of information in the house, but you know, we've got other duties too besides handling a Twitter account. Obviously, we wanted to Twitter the session daily headlines, which are the most immediate things that are happening. We've got a writer coming out of committee and come back to their desk. They can just Twitter a headline that this tax bill passed or the Vikings bill didn't pass, and then later on they can update it and add a link to the story in the video archive. Session daily headlines was a no-brainer. You know, we've gone from a print magazine once a week to session daily stories, you know, a couple times a day to throughout the day, and now immediate Twitter. So that's sort of the progression. Almost exclusively, we do content created by our department. That was just a protection matter. You know, we're not a Twitter account for the Minnesota House of Representatives. We repeat that, but you know, people probably don't think that when they see the account. So we want to be tweeting information that we created, and certainly caucuses have their own Twitter accounts, members do, leadership does, but we, you know, it could really spin out of control if you're starting to tweet stuff from other people. You know, we report directly from the committee, so we're original source content, so that protects us. When session weekly goes online each week, I mean, that's something that's one of our high-profile products, so we promote that. If the writers come back from the House floor or committee or conference committee and there's actions of significance, we'll tweet those, even if we don't have a story to tie to it. If a conference committee bill passes or fails, those kind of high-profile things, we'll tweet those without any additional links. As I said, TV webcast schedules and production schedules, we do those on late on the afternoons, I decide what our TV coverage is the next day. So we do that, and then often those schedules change late at night or early in the morning, so we'll do those. And then, as I said, when photo slideshows go online. We also had to determine who's going to post tweets. Originally, I was thinking we should just have that all funneled down to one person, so we have some control over it, and we have some editorial focus right there. But in the middle of a hectic session, when things are going crazy, we realized that probably wasn't going to work. So we limited to four people who are permanent staff. They're not temporary staff. Our assistant director of editor is the head of our publications area. She's the editor, so that was a no-brainer. Our publications coordinator writer is probably is our junior member, or youngest member, but he's the one who brought us the idea of doing Twitter accounts. So we felt that he also covers committees, so that's a no-brainer. The director, that's a no-brainer. I'm gonna I have, and primarily it's the TV and photo-related items. If there's a late committee hearing in the evening or a floor session, if something happens and I'm about the last person in the office, I'll do that. And then our assistant editor is the one who works most directly with our session writers. So he's the one who says, when you come back from the tax committee, I want a session daily on this bill. I want a session weekly story on this, and then give me a headline for the Twitter. So the April 14th of 2009 was when we went public with our Twitter account. We did a public press release and notification, an email to members and staff, email on our department listserv, and then we alerted the press corps. I promoted the inclusion of promotional text on our department's outgoing emails on their signature line if they wanted to put, follow House Public Information Services on Twitter, and then the address. Not everybody does it, but it's just another option. During the first week, probably maybe 2 weeks of our Twitter account being public, we do a lower third graphic on our television broadcast and webcast. Follow the House Public Information postings, house.mn. And then on our web schedule page, we've got promotional text. So we went public on April 14th. 2 weeks later, we sort of did an evaluation to see, what went wrong and what went well. And very few things actually went wrong, but we did find some issues. Just to give you a little snapshot, back up 2 weeks. On April 14th, we had 23 followers. And again, that was people who subscribed to the account. It was members of our staff, their family, their friends, just so we had somebody, hopefully friends.
Testing the waters.
Testing the waters, yeah, and just to get an idea of what their thoughts were. And then last week, when I put this together, we were up to 667 followers and 350 different tweet messages. I think yesterday we were like 672. So obviously a lot during the legislative session, and as stuff comes up during the interim, which is after session's done. And that reflects, maybe it doesn't reflect, but we've had a general real increase in all of our web usage stats. Our webcasting, our hits to our session weekly online page, our hits to the session dailies. And we're not sure, you can never really tell if that's because of the Twitter promotion or the Twitter increase because of promotion otherwise. I did want to mention that, Twitter is commonly used to, people want to, tell the world about what they're doing that day and that hour. But they also follow and want to know what other people are tweeting. And we've made the conscious decision not to follow anyone. We're an original source creation of what's happening in committees and floor and what's happening in our department. But we just made that conscious decision not to follow anyone. The last thing I want to do is my boss to come to me and say, why are you following this member and not this member, or this media outlet and this media outlet? I mean, I gain nothing from that. Plus, obviously, a lot of our staff members have their own Twitter accounts, and they're following Minnesota Public Radio or KARE 11 or anything. So, I mean, they're following. We just don't use our official department web or Twitter account to follow anybody. And we use it just as a one-way communication. We've got television coverage which identifies what our products and services are. We've got an email listserv that has almost 4,000 people subscribe to it. But there's a way on Twitter. I can look at Min House Info, and it'll pull up post things on Twitter that